Maybe it's because she was born to me and she was born a girl, and I was born to my mother and I was born a girl. All of us are like stairs, one step after another, going up and down, but all going the same way. Amy Tan, the Gorilla Club. She also says, even though I did not understand her entire story, I understood her grief. Welcome back to another episode of Reflections with Tasneem. And first, I missed you guys, and I deeply apologize for the absence. But I have had a lot on my plate. First, there were deadlines and projects. After that, I had to finish my research paper, followed by its discussion. And later, I had my exams. So it was a hectic semester. Therefore, I've decided that the first episode I'd come back with, it would be about my research paper. Why? Because first of all, I was given 5 minutes only to talk about it, which is so unfair and cruel. Since I've spent almost a year or 9 months writing my paper. And not only me, but also my literature colleagues. And that is so unfair. And also, I've decided to host my dear colleagues to talk about their research papers. Because the topic itself is so significant and still resonates with today's world problems, and it needs more acknowledgement and people's attention than ever. So the topic itself is about exile, and then our supervisor narrowed it down to migrant literature in general, and then it was narrowed down to Asian migrant literature and Hispanic migrant literature. And we were giving the freedom to choose from these two sub literary genres. Beneath them, we were asked to choose from any ethnicity, any nation, and I chose to write about Chinese migrant literature. Typically, I chose Amy Tan's The Joyla Club. So who is Amy Tan? And what is migrant literature first? Migrant literature is Chinese migrant literature is one that deals with all the setbacks and problems that Chinese face in America or any place they migrate to. They have problems like language barriers, social and political adaptation, etc. First, I'd like to point out that the first generation, who's the first to migrate to this host culture or this host land, usually they don't quite adapt into the culture. Unlike the second generation, those who are born in the host country, they usually adapt the host culture and they live more like between these two worlds, their home country and their host country. And that is the problem. And that is what the Joyla Club is about. It's also about the complexities of the relationship between mothers and daughters, about the trauma that one leaves behind but still haunts them and still influences their offsprings. So it's about all this and many, many more. Who's Amy Tan? Amy Tan is a Chinese American writer who's born in California in 1952. She's a second generation migrant, so she fluently speaks English, but her Chinese is broken. She's not fully fluent in Chinese. She um had kind of hardships growing up. Her father died and her brother. And this incident influenced her. It made her more rebellious. She abandoned med school and then decided to study English literature and linguistics. She married her American boyfriend and then she started writing. She took writing, creative writing specifically as her career. And at first, she struggled to write, not because it was hard for her, but it was. But this is the case with creative writing. After writing her first short story, her editor advised her to write more. And then she finished 16 short stories which then they were collected in a form of novel, and that is her debut novel, The Joyla Club. She uses her life in order to write about her characters. She uses her family legacy, like the trauma of her mother, of her grandmother. What happened to her mom in China? She abandoned her three daughters with her abusive ex-husband. So she uses true stories in her fiction, um, and that is the reason she's criticized. But she comments that there is a deeper truth in fiction that is probably absolute to my life. And I do agree with her that literature needs to be realistic. It doesn't need to be cut off of our lives. You know, it has to be deeply personal in order to reach people, to touch people's hearts, if you know what I mean. So the Joyla Club is actually, as I mentioned before, it's about the generational conflicts and the complexities of mother daughter relationships, and this manifests through four Chinese immigrant mothers and their American born daughters. Amy Tan comments regarding this. She says the relationships are fraught with years of misunderstandings and accumulated pain. A mother's hopes and expectations become a daughter's sense of failure. A mother's advice is received by a daughter as rejection of who she really is. The mother, in return, feels her daughter knows nothing about her and has learned nothing from her mother, the one who loved her best. So these four mothers and these four daughters navigate their relationship. Each one of them narrates two stories. So we have 16 stories, 16 short stories, except one of the mothers. So let me introduce you to my characters. We have the young family, Yang Mei Wu and Suyan Wu. Suyan is the mother, and Young Mei Wu is the daughter. Their relationship is the heart theme of the Joyla Club, and I'll explain why later on. Okay. Next mother daughter pair we have Waverly Young and her mother Lindu Wang. And next, the third mother daughter pair, we have the St. Clairs, Yang St. Clair, the mother, and her daughter Lena St. Clair. Finally, we have the Hisu family, and Mei Hisu, the mother, and her daughter Rose Hisu Jordan. Before diving into the novel, I'd like to highlight the title of my research paper. It is titled The Qualities of Hope, a dual occultative study of intergenerational trauma, and Amy Tan's The Joyla Club. I chose to compare, firstly, analyze my novel in John Barry's occultation model, and I'll explain this model in a minute. And then I compared my novel to its movie adaptation. And finally, I finished my research paper comparing one of my characters, Young Mei Wu, with the protagonist of Jamba Lahiri's The Namesake, who's called Gogol Ganguly, also known as Nikhil. Let's move on to the framework I chose. I chose a culturation model by John Barry. It's a model that explains how immigrants navigate their life, how they adapt into this new society they migrated into. So, uh, migrants have two dimensions. They either reject or maintain the host culture. And out of these two dimensions, four orientations slash strategies emerge. Number one strategy is assimilation, and it occurs when an individual totally rejects his own culture in order to adapt in order to adapt the host culture, and which is this, and this strategy is typical to the second generation. The second strategy is separation. It is the opposite of assimilation, and usually this is adapted by the first generation. Separation is characterized by totally adapting maintaining their home culture, um, and abandon the host culture, refusing to participate in this new society. And third strategy we have that is integration, which is the best strategy. It is characterized by maintaining a balance, creating a balance between one's own culture and the host culture they've migrated into. And finally, we have marginalization, which is characterized by neither, by adapting, by fully refusing their the host culture and their one's own culture, resulting in the migrant living in a liminal space, in a place where they neither belong nor they are their former self. They no longer know themselves. So my premises is that the mother's traumatic past in China affects the daughter's adaptation strategy, resulting in a fake assimilation for some of the daughters, and for Lena Sinclair, resulting in marginalization. However, by the end of the novel, a kind of reconciliation occurs. That is by storytelling and by opening up to their daughters. The mothers and daughters achieve a kind of integration. That is my thesis. Okay. So starting with the first mother-daughter pairs, we have the Wu family, Youngmei Wu and Suyan Wu. As I told you, they are the heart theme of the whole novel. Why? Because their story is actually based on a real story. So especially young June's mother, she abandons her two twin daughters in on a road in order to get help. She thought she's gonna die, surviving the war, the Japanese invasion on China, but she didn't die, and that is results in her panic. She waited for her children. She still waited for their children, but it was to no vain. In the end, she migrated to America with her new husband, started the new family, and had June. And so in June, she sees the hope and the expectations she had in her daughter. She wants to see June as a piano prodigy. But June refuses to excel at all. She first thought, like her mother, that she can be anything in America. But after, for once, disappointing her mother, she decides to rebel. She no longer wants to conform to her mother's wishes and dreams. That she will be herself. This parallels Amy Tan herself. She like June had three stepdaughters in China. She knew nothing about. And then she abandons her mother's wishes, and choosing English literature instead of med school. This rebellious nature, that is what I am talking about. This is the energy of the second generation. They don't understand their mother's sacrifice, and they don't understand their pain. So Yan is living in what Barry calls separation, and June and also Tan lives in assimilation. The reconciliation or integration, I'd rather call, occurs only when June visits China for the first time to meet her twin sisters after her mom dies. She gets to know that they're similar. That she does not have to choose uh, one culture after on the account of the other. That she doesn't have to compromise. But she's Chinese and American, the same. I also want to highlight something about the name, the Joy Luck Club. It's an actual club. That it was created by Tan's mother and father in America to maintain hope, to still prosper in China, what they would do in their monthly or weekly meetings, they would play mahjong, they would cook Chinese food and share stories. So joy luck is not only a form of cultural preservation, it embodies a Chinese philosophical approach to surviving tragic losses. All these Chinese people have sacrificed something in order to migrate. They've lost something in China, and it's not only a cultural preservation, but it's a way of dealing with these trauma. And I would like to mention something Tan says about the Joy Luck Club. She says the word joy luck had a lot to do with your circumstances and that in your life you're handed something. It has to do with where you were born and what's happened. And if you went through a war, if you lost your money, your identity, and so there was bad luck. But just as easily, there could be good luck and it could change all that. And when it changed, you would have joy. So it proves that b- bad luck and good luck can coexist. And to these Chinese mothers, luck is a shifting force, not permanent state. But before moving to the second mother daughter pair, I'd like to also highlight a symbol that is the swan feather. The swan feather exists in the movie, in the beginning of the movie adaptation, and also in the beginning of the novel. And its story is so sublime. It tells a story of a migrant woman who bought a kind of bird, and this bird has turned and shifted to be a swan, and she took this swan with her to this new land, but it was taken away from her. Only a feather from it left, and so she tells her own daughters a story. She tells her that this feather may look worthless, but it comes from afar and carries with it all my good intentions. The feather, the swan feather, it's a symbol of cultural transmission, and it also represents the collective maternal inheritance of all the mothers, not just Soyan, but all the mothers, the hope, the sacrifice, the refusal to let their daughters forget where they came from and what their mothers survived to give them a better life. There is also a jade necklace that was given to June by her mother, and it's a symbol of maternal love and transmission of identity. Her mother tells her that this jade necklace, it was given to her after a disastrous dinner, and she tells her that it represents your life's importance, meaning that June's worth lies not in achievement or perfection, but in her capacity for selflessness and love. Let's move on to second mother daughter pair, Waverly Young and her mother Lindo. Just like June and her mother, Waverly was a rebellious kid. She was a chess prodigy. She used to play chess and she used to win, and her mother was proud of her. But she hated this pride. She thought that it's a Chinese humility, kind of Chinese humility. So she rebels and shouts at her mother that she needs to stop. And if she wants to boost, she had to learn chess herself. And so Lexian Lindu adapts separation. She upholds her Chinese identity over adapting the Chinese in the American culture. Like June, Waverly rejects her Chinese identity. And so she grows up with this sense of independence, this American independence. But still, a word from her mother can still affect her. She says, I couldn't fend off the strength of her well anymore. Her ability to make me see black where there was once white, white where there was once black. This reveals that Linda's judgment has not diminished with distance or achievement. It has migrated inward. This leaves Waverly in a state of unresolved assimilation. She has built a thoroughly American life. She has an American boyfriend, and it all seems perfectly well. She has a good job. She's a tax attorney. This state of emptiness is what Barry describes as an acculturative stress. Waverly did not choose assimilation fairly, but she was pushed into it by a conflict she could not resolve as a child. The result, she grew up a woman who functions confidently in American spaces but freezes the moment her Chinese identity is invoked. This confusion is resolved in the confrontation scene between Waverly and her mother. And I'd like to point out how differently both medium has portrayed this reconciliation and this confrontation. In the novel, Waverly bursts into house looking for her mom, but she finds her sleeping on the couch, powerless, defeated. And she, for a minute, thinks that her mother is dead. But when her mother wakes up and calls her Mimi, her childhood name, all her anger demolishes. She says, I had gone from being angered by her strength to being amazed by her innocence, and then frightened by her vulnerability. And this is a pivotal moment in Barry's integration, as the adaptation or the adoption of a new strategy requires the dissolution of a false binary. She no longer sees this contrary false binary that her American identity is not the opposite of her Chinese or vice versa. Instead of seeing Lindu as the bad mother, she views her, finally she sees her just an old woman. A woke for her armor, a knitting needle for her sword, getting a little crabby as she waited patiently for her daughter to invite her in. An iron coat. And this military metaphor Tan uses reveals the mindset Waverly has been carrying since her childhood. She's been seeing her mother as person who she needs to win over, but no, she now acknowledges that her mom is just her mom. And this moment of realization is portrayed in the movie through a very beautiful technique in front of a mirror. Director Wayne Wang positions both women in front of a mirror in the hair salon, where they see each other's countenance, they see their facial features, their crooked nose. They're no longer two halves, but two wholes, like the yin and yang, completing each other. And Waverly acknowledges their nose, not as bad, but devious. She says, we're for one side and also the other. We mean what we say, but our intentions are different. We are two-faced of the same coin. And this highlights the transmission of trauma and the acceptance and moving on, acceptance of both Chinese and American identities without betraying either. And their reflection mirrors that not only do they have or do they share the same facial resemblance, but a healing journey towards integration and mutual understanding. Moving on to the third mother-daughter pair, we have the Sinclairs, Lena Sinclair and her mother, Yang Yang Sinclair. And these two are special because both women adapt marginalization, or shall I say that Yang Yang, because of her trauma and what occurred to her in China, she married a bad man. She was of a wealthy family, but she married a bad man who treated her badly and cheated on her. She got her revenge by drowning her baby boy. And this leaves her in a liminal space, in a state of she's here but not here. She's physically present, but mentally she's absent. Like she's a ghost. And this ghostlessness she transmits to her daughter, Lena. This state of ghostlessness leaves her without her identity. She was born in the tiger year. And as we know, a tiger has black strips and golden strips, and each with its own features and characteristics. Her black strips is fearless, bold, and the one which has agency, and the golden one is the gracious one. Anyway, she forgot her true nature because of her trauma, and she realizes that she actually transmits this to her daughter, and thus her daughter Lena has grew up without having any wood, without having any agency in her own life. She married a man, and this man is just a bad man. He treats her equally with fairness, and that's her problem. Why she should pay for ice cream she doesn't even eat? It is so horrible that she has to sit up with this man. They also work in the same company, and even though his salary is 7 times larger than hers, he still divides everything equally. They pay for everything equally, and that is disgusting. So this marriage, this flawed, unnatural marriage, her mother senses when she visits her in her new home, and she wakes up. Her soul wakes up. There is a symbol, the wobbly table. Her husband, Harold, Lena's husband, Harold, has built a table, and it's wobbly. And this reflects the nature of their marriage is fragile. It's akin to chaos. It would fall in any minute. And so when the vase on this wobbly table breaks, it functions as a wake up call to both Lena and her mother. Finally, Yang Yang Sinclair advises her daughter, and this moment of reconciliation and integration is portrayed in the movie very brilliant. The director uses light and shadow in order to reflect the true nature of the mother, which is Tiger, as I mentioned, and the strips of light on her face signify that she's reclaiming her black nature, the cunning and the patience required to cut her daughter's spirit loose in order to save her from a similarly hollow existence. Um, uh, in the movie, she tells her daughter, she asks her, "You know what you want? I mean, from him, Harold." And Lena answers, "Respect and tenderness." Her mother advises her to leave until he gives her what she wants, with both hands open. Lena doubts her capability, that she can't. But Yang Yang tells her losing him does not matter. It is you who will be found and cherished. Yang Yang's words serve as the ultimate act of maternal love, ensuring that Lena does not repeat the cycle of silence and disappointment that once devoured her mother. I'd like also to point the distinction between the novel's conclusion and the film adaptation regarding Lena's future. In the movie, she marries another man. She's happy with another man, but in the novel, we're left to wonder: did she reclaim her agency or not? And finally, we have the final mother-daughter pairs, the Hasu family. They are more complicated than the others. Why? Because their story is based on Tan's grandmother. Tan's grandmother and Anne May was a concubine to a Chinese man. She was forced into concubinage after her father died, or as in the novel, after her husband died. She was raped and forced into concubinage, accepting to be treated as a fourth wife, a mere fourth wife, and her boy was taken away from her. She did not accept. She was horribly under this injustice, unable to advocate for herself. The only right thing she did is that she stood up for her kids by taking her own life. She took her own life to safeguard their future and to save their place in the house. And that is why Anne May learned that it was too late for her mother. She learned her worth, but it was too late. And so she advises her daughter Rose to reclaim her agency and to stop listening to anyone but her mother. Remember the cyclic quotation I opened this episode with? We're all like stairs moving up and down, but we're all going the same way. It is the ultimate quotation about mother-daughter relationships and about the trauma we inherit and about the hope we also inherit. Just like Amy Tan, I do believe that the Joy Luck Club is about the qualities of hope we inherit from our mothers. We don't just inherit their silence and their trauma, we also inherit the means to overcome the silence and this trauma. And that is what the Joy Luck Club is all about. That was it. Hope you watch the movie if you can and read the novel. It's just so beautiful. And that was it. If you have any comments or any opinions, you can always reach me on Instagram or on my email. I'll leave my email below. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank you, and till next time. Bye bye.